Welcome to Caroline Effect, where we uncover the hidden psychology behind attraction, relationships, and self-respect so you can navigate every connection with confidence. What if the words ruining your dating life aren't obvious red flags, but ordinary words you've heard 100 times? What if every busy, maybe, friend, and soon has been telling you far more than you ever realized? Stay with me, because once you understand the psychology behind these 4 simple words, you'll never look at mixed signals the same way again. Most men believe attraction is lost through obvious things like silence, mixed signals, or emotional distance. But the truth is, the shift usually begins much earlier. It starts with a few innocent-looking words that seem completely harmless. Because they sound so ordinary, almost every man ignores them. And that's exactly what gives them power. You've probably heard these words before without thinking twice, but if you've ever found yourself constantly waiting for replies, questioning where you stand, or chasing clarity that never comes, those words may have quietly shaped the entire dynamic between you and her. In this video, we're going to uncover 4 simple words that often appear before the balance of power changes. Once you recognize the meaning behind them, you'll stop reacting emotionally and start seeing the interaction for what it really is. Words are one of the most subtle ways people influence each other. Most men pay attention to actions, less texting, colder conversations, cancelled plans. But long before behavior changes, communication often changes first. A single word can completely alter how you interpret a situation without you realizing it. Psychologists describe this as framing. The language someone chooses influences how you see reality. A word delivered casually can quietly shape your expectations, your emotions, and your decisions. Imagine a woman repeatedly saying she's busy. Most men immediately assume she's overwhelmed with work, family, or personal responsibilities. They give her the benefit of the doubt because it feels reasonable. But something else may also be happening. While you're interpreting her schedule, she's noticing your reaction. She sees whether you become more patient, whether you chase harder, or whether you'll continue lowering your standards just to keep her attention. Every delayed reply, every postponed plan, and every vague explanation gives her information about how you'll respond under uncertainty. Many women aren't doing this with bad intentions. Attraction naturally reveals confidence, emotional stability, and self-respect. When uncertainty appears, your response often says more about you than her words ever could. That's why these 4 words matter. They don't simply communicate information. They often reveal how the relationship is developing and how each person responds when the dynamic changes. The first word is busy. When she says, "I've been really busy lately," most men hear a problem with her schedule. They assume she's exhausted or simply doesn't have enough hours in the day. But genuine interest usually finds a way. Someone who truly values spending time with you doesn't suddenly lose every opportunity to connect. Even during hectic weeks, they'll usually make small efforts, a quick message, a short call, or a simple check-in, to show you're still important. The word busy becomes meaningful when it turns into a consistent pattern rather than an occasional reality. There's another psychological factor involved here. Human beings naturally respond strongly to unpredictable rewards. When attention arrives randomly after long periods of silence, it can feel far more exciting than consistent communication. This pattern encourages people to wait longer, invest more, and overlook behavior they normally wouldn't accept. Picture this. A man sends a thoughtful message in the morning. Hours pass without a reply. He tells himself she's probably occupied. The next day, she suddenly responds with warmth, jokes, maybe even a voice message. Immediately, his disappointment disappears because the attention feels rewarding after the absence. Without realizing it, he begins adjusting his expectations around her availability. As this cycle repeats, he becomes more invested while accepting less consistency. Meanwhile, if he ever pulls back his own attention, she suddenly seems much more available. When genuine attraction exists, effort usually becomes visible. Someone who wants to stay connected rarely relies on endless excuses. They make time where they can because the connection matters. Many men mistake endless patience for emotional strength. They believe constantly waiting proves loyalty, maturity, or understanding. But patience without boundaries often communicates something very different. It signals that you'll accept uncertainty indefinitely, even when your own needs are ignored. So what should you do? Not argue. Not send long emotional messages demanding explanations. Not chase reassurance. Instead, simply mirror the level of investment you're receiving. If communication becomes inconsistent, stop overextending yourself. Continue living your life, focusing on your own priorities instead of waiting for hers. When your attention is no longer guaranteed, the dynamic naturally changes. Whether she steps forward or continues drifting away, you gain something valuable: clarity. Because the moment you stop organizing your emotional world around someone else's uncertainty, you stop giving uncertainty control over you. The second word is maybe. When a woman says maybe or I'll let you know, many men hear possibility. They leave the conversation believing there's still a strong chance things will happen, but very often, maybe isn't a decision, it's a pause. It keeps the door slightly open without requiring commitment. It delays certainty while allowing the other person to remain emotionally invested. Instead of saying yes or no, the conversation is left suspended. And during that suspension, many men begin doing the work for her. They wait, speculate, adjust their schedules, and hold on to hope, all without receiving a clear answer. That uncertainty can become far more powerful than rejection because it keeps you emotionally attached while offering no real direction. The strongest response isn't pressure or persuasion, it's respecting your own time enough to let unclear answers remain exactly what they are: unclear. People who genuinely want to spend time with you usually make it easy to know where you stand. And when someone consistently leaves you in uncertainty, the healthiest move isn't to chase certainty from them. It's to create certainty within yourself by valuing your own time, attention, and peace of mind. The word maybe sounds harmless, but it often creates a quiet emotional trap. Instead of giving you a clear answer, it keeps you in a state of waiting. You're not moving forward, yet you're not free to move on either. That uncertainty is exactly what keeps many men emotionally invested. Picture this. You ask her out for the weekend. She replies with a friendly, maybe, I'll let you know. Then the conversation goes silent for 2 days. During that time, she's active online, posting stories and living her life, while you're checking your phone, wondering if she's finally made up her mind. Most men believe they're being respectful by waiting. They think giving her space shows confidence and patience. But if someone consistently leaves you in limbo, endless waiting doesn't always communicate strength. Sometimes it simply tells the other person that you'll always remain available, no matter how uncertain they are. A vague answer allows someone to control the pace while keeping their options open. They don't have to commit, yet they also don't have to lose your attention. During that time, they're quietly observing something important, not your appearance or your income, but your boundaries. The difficult truth is this: when someone is genuinely excited about seeing you, they usually make that clear. They don't rely on endless uncertainty or repeated maybes. While life can certainly get busy, consistent hesitation often reflects uncertainty rather than enthusiasm. Unfortunately, many men respond by investing even more. They send another invitation, another text, another reminder that they're still interested. Without realizing it, they place even more value into a connection that hasn't been equally returned. Imagine waiting several days for an answer that never becomes a real plan. No date, no time, no commitment, yet you continue keeping your schedule open just in case. While you're waiting, the other person may simply be deciding what they want without feeling any urgency because they already know you'll still be there. The healthiest response isn't anger or playing games, it's clarity. Instead of chasing another answer, calmly leave the decision where it belongs. A simple response like, "Let me know when you've decided," protects both your time and your peace of mind. Then continue living your life. The moment you stop waiting indefinitely, uncertainty loses its power. The other person must either make a genuine choice or accept that you've moved forward. People can't keep you suspended if you refuse to stay suspended. The third word is friend. Almost every man remembers hearing it. "You're such a good friend." At first, it sounds kind, even complimentary, but depending on the situation, that single word can quietly redefine the relationship. People naturally place others into different categories very quickly. Sometimes romantic interest develops. Sometimes mutual respect grows without attraction. Sometimes someone becomes emotional support. And sometimes they become the person who is always there, but is never viewed romantically. That's where many men unintentionally find themselves. They answer every late-night message, listen to every problem, offer endless reassurance, and become the first person she turns to whenever life feels overwhelming. They believe emotional closeness will naturally create attraction. Sometimes it does, but often it creates familiarity without romance. They become the person who provides comfort while someone else receives excitement. Psychologists sometimes describe this as emotional labor. Listening, supporting, encouraging, and comforting are all valuable qualities. But when those qualities are given endlessly, without healthy boundaries, they can become expected instead of appreciated. One of the biggest misunderstandings men make is believing that giving more automatically creates attraction. In reality, attraction usually grows alongside confidence, independence, and self-respect. When your entire role becomes solving someone else's emotional problems, the relationship can slowly lose the balance that creates romantic tension. If you recognize this pattern, the answer isn't trying harder, it's creating healthier boundaries. Stop making yourself endlessly available. Don't feel responsible for fixing every difficult day. Continue being kind, but stop sacrificing your own emotional energy to earn someone's affection. When you value your own time, people begin seeing you differently. Instead of being someone who is always waiting in the background, you become someone whose presence has value because it isn't unlimited. The fourth word is soon. Few words keep people waiting longer than this one. "We'll meet soon." "I'll call you soon." "We should definitely do something soon." On the surface, it sounds hopeful. It feels like progress. But notice something important. Soon doesn't actually tell you anything. There's no day, no time, no commitment, just the promise that something might happen later. Psychologically, vague future promises can keep people emotionally invested because hope often feels easier than accepting uncertainty. Imagine asking when she's available. She smiles through text and replies, "Let's get together soon." Days turn into weeks, nothing gets planned. The only thing left is that one message sitting in your conversation while life continues moving forward. Meanwhile, She's spending time with friends, making plans, and living normally, not necessarily because she's trying to hurt you, but because meeting you simply isn't a priority at that moment. That's the part many men overlook. People usually make time for what genuinely matters to them. Soon often leaves the door slightly open without requiring anyone to actually walk through it. The healthiest response isn't frustration, it's paying attention to actions instead of promises. When someone truly wants to see you, plans usually become specific. Until that happens, keep investing your time in your own goals, friendships, and opportunities. Because confidence isn't built by waiting endlessly for someone else's decision. It's built by respecting your own time enough to stop living inside someone else's uncertainty. When someone keeps saying soon, it can sometimes mean they're trying to keep the connection alive without making a real commitment. They may not be ready to invest fully, but they also don't want to close the door completely. As a result, you remain emotionally available while nothing actually moves forward. Many people convince themselves that a vague promise is the same as progress. They tell themselves that patience is always the right answer and that eventually everything will fall into place. But patience only has value when it's supported by consistent effort from both people. Waiting endlessly without clear action often turns into sacrificing your own time and emotional energy. So how do you respond? Not with anger, not with accusations, not by demanding explanations. Instead, pay attention to actions instead of promises. If someone repeatedly talks about meeting soon, but never chooses a day, a place, or a time, treat that as useful information rather than something to argue about. Continue living your life instead of putting it on hold. A genuine future usually comes with real plans. It has specifics. It moves from conversation into action. If weeks pass and nothing changes, don't keep investing in possibilities that never become reality. Something important happens when you stop waiting. You stop giving away control of your own time. Your confidence no longer depends on someone else's decisions, and suddenly the other person must either make a real effort or accept that you've moved forward. People often respect those who respect their own boundaries. Someone may continue postponing a person who always waits, but it's much harder to postpone someone who has their own direction, priorities, and purpose. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. The words busy, maybe, friend, and soon are not automatically good or bad. Context always matters. Sometimes people genuinely are busy. Sometimes maybe truly means uncertainty. Sometimes friendship is exactly what someone honestly wants to offer. The real lesson isn't to distrust every word. The lesson is to observe whether words and actions consistently match. Many people make the mistake of reacting emotionally the moment they hear something uncertain. They begin chasing reassurance, changing their behavior, lowering their standards, and trying harder to earn clarity. Without realizing it, they slowly give away their confidence. The pattern usually looks the same. A vague response creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates overthinking. Overthinking leads to chasing. Chasing changes the balance of the relationship. The greatest shift happens when you stop reacting automatically and start observing calmly. Instead of asking yourself, how do I make this person choose me? Ask yourself, are their actions showing genuine interest? That single question changes everything. People who value themselves don't force connections. They don't beg for consistency. They don't build their future around unclear signals. They simply pay attention, make decisions based on reality, and continue moving forward. Real confidence isn't about controlling someone else. It's about controlling your own responses. It's choosing not to overinvest when the investment isn't mutual. It's refusing to build fantasies from vague promises. It's knowing your worth without needing constant validation from another person. When you stop allowing uncertainty to dictate your emotions, your relationships naturally become healthier. You're no longer waiting for someone else to define your value. Your standards define it. And that changes every interaction. You stop chasing clarity because your own boundaries create it. You stop seeking approval because your self-respect becomes your foundation. You stop fearing rejection because your life no longer depends on one person's decision. If these 4 words have ever left you confused, let them become reminders instead of traps. Let busy remind you to notice consistent effort. Let maybe remind you to value clear intentions. Let friend remind you to recognize relationships for what they truly are. Let soon remind you that real interest eventually becomes real action. The strongest position you can ever have in dating isn't convincing someone to choose you. It's becoming someone who never abandons their own standards while waiting to be chosen. When you master your reactions, you protect your confidence. When you protect your confidence, every relationship becomes clearer. And that's where real strength begins. The moment you stop chasing vague words and start trusting consistent actions, everything changes. Your confidence no longer depends on someone else's mixed signals. It comes from the standards you set for yourself. Remember, the right person won't keep you guessing, so value your time, protect your peace, and never settle for uncertainty when you deserve clarity. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe to Carolline Effect for more insights on relationships, confidence, and emotional intelligence. If this message reminded you of someone who could benefit from it, share it with them. And if there's a situation you're trying to understand, leave a comment below. We'll explore it together in a future video.